Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the School Curriculum Assessment and Accountability Council. This beautiful November 18th day, it might be a little rainy and you're part of the Commonwealth, but we're enjoying the fall and getting ready for our Thanksgiving break. My name is Janabeth Francis, and I'm the chair of SCAAC, and so we're so glad that you've joined us today. We do have one new member, and I'm just checking, Sarah Williams. She'll be joining us representing principals. She currently serves as a principal in Jefferson County. And Sarah, I would like to go over some member responsibilities. And it's always good for all of the SCAAC members to remember what our goal and intent is. At the end of the day, the goal and intent of SCAAC is to study, review, and make recommendations concerning Kentucky's system of setting academic standards, assessing learning, identifying academic competencies and deficiencies of students, holding schools accountable for learning, and assisting schools to improve their performance. That's a big charge, but we're so thankful that you have agreed to serve on SCAAC and be a part of that. At the end of the day, we also advise the Kentucky Board of Education and the Legislative Research Commission on issues related to the development and communication of academic expectations and core content assessments, the development and implementation of a statewide accountability system and assessment system, and in the recognizing of high-performing schools, imposition of sanctions, and assisting schools to improve their performance under KRS 158-6453, KRS 158-6455, KRS 158-782, and finally KRS 158-805. Members, what we're going to do to begin with is a roll call, and for that, I turn it over to Melissa Chandler. Melissa?
All right, thanks, Janabeth. And before I call roll, I'd like to provide just some information for members about conducting meetings in a virtual setting. This meeting must comply with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. The public may view the meeting via the link provided in the public agenda, which is posted on the KDE website. SCAAC members must ensure that their video is streaming and they can be seen throughout the duration of the meeting. Additionally, all discussions must be broadcast to the public. So each time you do speak during the meeting, please unmute your mic, state your name, and take a short pause. That will just give our software time to recognize you. For agenda items that require a formal vote, we'll have one of those, I believe, today. We'll conduct a roll call to record the vote of each member. Actually, we'll have a couple. And then please silence or turn off electronic devices that may cause disruption to your sound feed. Minutes will be taken and shared with the general public on the KDE website when those are available. I'll go on and call roll. Members, when you hear your name, please make sure your camera and mic are on if you're able to have that capability. State your full name and then indicate you're present, and we will need 9 members for a quorum. So Deborah Atherton.
Deborah Atherton, present.
Carrie Ballinger.
Present.
Houston Barber. Renee Boss. Martha Emmons. And I've been talking with Martha this morning. I know she's here.
Yes, I'm here. I had
Gotcha.
to disable my mic again.
Okay. Chuck Fletcher.
Chuck Fletcher, present.
Janabeth Francis.
Janabeth Francis, present.
Frank Hall. Leslie Jeffries. And I think I've seen Leslie here as well. I see her hand raised. Okay. Brenda McGowan.
Brenda McGowan, good morning, all.
Thank you. Jason Reeves. Allison Tammy. Josh Trosper. Sarah Williams.
Present.
And Alan Young.
Alan Young, present.
And we do have a quorum, Janabeth.
Excellent. That's great. And we're all glad you're here. And let me just look at the people in the meeting. And Commissioner Fletcher, we want to turn it over to you for some greetings.
And I'd like to wish everyone a happy Accountability Release Week. We've had to overcome a lot of delays as we've gone through. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the folks in OAA and the people that they've worked with to overcome a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of late hours and a lot of time put in to get to this point. A lot of things that people don't see on behind the scenes. Of course, we've had delays all the way through everything. I won't steal too much of Dr. Stafford's thunder for a little later, but we did have a change in the science assessment, which means we had to go through a required standard setting process, which we'd all would want. That did delay our typical accountability release data week. So we did get that out and get that completed, and thankful for all of those who served on that standard setting process. So again, there's other issues too. School report card, we were having some data communication issues there with the vendor. We believe we've overcome most, if not all, of those issues. There may be some others that still need to be ironed out. So you may see some odd issues with the school report card, but we felt like that it wasn't enough to keep us from actually having the public release on school report card. Of course, you can get all the data on open house for every district. You can see all that too. So if you have any issues with the school report card whatsoever, please let someone in Dr. Stafford's office know so we can kind of try to take care of that. We also have some different things with the assessment system this time. Districts essentially have two scores. There's also a federal score this year. So a busy week for a lot of districts this week. It'll probably handling more of the media than anything else. As a matter of fact, I have a press conference a little later that we'll be taping for tomorrow with various members of the press that will be here later today. So with that, that's the biggest event I can think of for this week. And of course, we're always working with legislators on what it looks like, what the new accountability model looks like as we go through. And again, just a good week and again, some positive data. Be happy to tell you more tomorrow, but again, some positive data as we compare districts throughout from previous years to this year and some improvements that we've seen. So congratulations to all districts on those improvements and look forward to what this year has to bring also too. That being said, I'll turn it back over to our chairperson, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that maybe they may have, if you'd like. Chair Francis.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Fletcher? It is a busy week for all of us, and I'm glad that the data got released this week. And our SCAAC meeting falls just 24 hours shy of being able to really celebrate and talk about all the data and to look closely at the accountability system. But please make sure you spend some time doing that and looking around. And tomorrow you can get to all the schools' data. And if you're in a district, you should be able to see your own school right now. So before I turn it over to Melissa to do the SCAAC chair and vice chair elections, I would just like to say how thankful I am for all of you for serving on this committee. I am ending my term as chair of SCAAC, and it's been really fascinating because I've gotten to be on SCAAC 2 different times in my 24 years as a district assessment coordinator and find it to be one of the more fascinating committees. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, who's going to get us started on electing a new chair for SCAAC.
Thanks, Janet Beth. And I can say thank you so much to you and your service to this committee. You have been a wonderful chairperson, so collaborative with our office and with all of our presenters that we have. So thank you so much for your leadership. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
We will move on to the election of a new SCAAC council chair. And nominations were gathered prior to today's meeting, and Carrie Ballinger has been nominated for the chair of the SCAAC moving forward. Given there was only one name on the slate, that makes things pretty easy. So I just need a motion to approve the slate, which is Carrie. And at that same motion, we can elect Carrie Ballinger as the chair of SCAAC. So if I could have a motion and then a second.
I would motion to elect Carrie and also approve the nomination and elect Carrie. Jana Beth Francis.
Alan,
Brenda
second.
McGowan, second.
All right, we had a couple. So I heard Brenda first. So motion by Jana Beth and second by Brenda McGowan. So election of a chair does require a roll call vote. So when I call your name, please indicate aye or yes if you agree, and nay or no if you disagree. So we have Deborah Atherton.
I agree.
Carrie Ballinger.
Aye.
Houston Barber, Renee Boss, Martha Emmons,
Agree. Yes.
Chuck Fletcher,
Aye.
Janabeth Francis,
Aye.
Frank Hall, I think he's not here, Leslie Jeffries, and I see your hand, good job, Brenda McGowan,
Aye.
Jason Reeves, Allison Tammy, Josh Trosper, Sarah Williams,
Aye.
Alan Young.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. So Carrie Ballinger has been elected chair. Congratulations, Carrie. And we're going to pass the torch to you immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the torch. And if you would proceed with the nominations and election for a vice chair, that would be wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much for the nomination and for electing me to serve in this capacity. I'm honored to do so, and I do have very big shoes to fill because Janabeth has been a fabulous chair and has led our group in such an efficient and meaningful way. And I thank you, Janabeth, for your leadership, and I hope I can do half the job that you have done in this role. So thank you. Moving on, we do need to elect a vice chair to serve. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice chair of SCAAC. Is there anyone that would like to make a nomination?
Alan Young, and I'd just like to nominate myself. I'd be interested in serving as your vice chair.
Okay, Alan Young is nominated as vice chair of SCAAC. Are there any further nominations?
Madam Chair, Chuck Fletcher, I move that we accept this by acclamation.
Okay, nominations are now closed. Given that there is only one name on the slate, and we have a motion to approve this slate and elect Alan Young as the vice chair of SCAAC, I will need a second for that.
McGowan, second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Melissa, I'll ask you to do the roll call.
Absolutely. Deborah Atherton,
Aye.
Carrie Ballinger,
Aye.
Houston Barber is not here. Renee Boss is not here. Martha Emmons,
Aye.
Chuck Fletcher,
Aye.
Janabeth Francis,
Aye.
Frank Hall, Leslie Jeffries,
Aye.
Brenda McGowan,
Aye.
Jason Reeves, Allison Tammy, Josh Trosper, Sarah Williams,
Aye.
Alan Young.
Aye.
Okay, we do have a majority.
All right, congratulations, Alan. Welcome as the vice chair of SCAAC.
Thanks to everyone.
Okay, next on our agenda, we do need to review our agenda for the November 18th meeting today, and also we need to approve the minutes from the September 25th meeting. You did have those minutes in your Google folder that you could have reviewed prior to this meeting. So if this time I do need a motion to approve our minutes from September 25th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from September 2025.
We have a first. Is there a second?
I second the motion. Chuck Fletcher.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Melissa, do we need to do a roll call on this, or can we do an all those in favor?
Right, all those in favor, and they can show their hand or just say yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a first and a second to approve our agenda. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye into your microphone.
Aye.
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 Okay. We have approved our agenda, and first up on our presentation for today, we have an update on the numeracy counts, House Bill 162. I would like to welcome Ms. Chelsea Tingle, who is the Director of Mathematics Education in the Office of Teaching and Learning with the Kentucky Department of Education. So welcome, Chelsea. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much for the welcome. As you can see with Numeracy Counts Act, House Bill 162, Section 1 establishes that mathematics proficiency is essential for all of our students. It is Kentucky's goal that all students have the skills necessary to demonstrate the skill and fluency building from conceptual understanding to application in order to solve real-world problems. There's also strong support of MTSS for struggling learners in K-12 through the use of evidence-based mathematics instruction, intervention, and instructional strategies. Continuing with this, it is the goal for all students in kindergarten grade and through grades 3 to make accelerated progress toward proficiency in mathematics based on data from valid and reliable universal screening and diagnostic assessments, and that they receive high quality evidence-based mathematics instruction and intervention that is aligned to grade level learning as established with the Kentucky Academic Standards. Section 4 was codified into law as KRS 158-8402, and it is the heart of the legislation. As part of the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act, each superintendent shall determine by January 1, 2026, at least one KDE-approved universal screener for mathematics that is valid and reliable for all K-3 students, at least one KDE diagnostic assessment for mathematics to be used within the MTSS framework for K-3 students, and also ensure that all K-3 teachers are trained on the selected screener and diagnostic tools before the school year begins. The KDE approved list of valid and reliable screeners and diagnostics is available on the Numeracy Screenings Assessment webpage, and we're confident about our selection criteria and approved list of screening assessments, but we do acknowledge there is work to be done by the publishers and vendors provided related to the diagnostic assessments. We did adopt some with reservations because they don't yet have the data to show impact across all categories needed to demonstrate validity and reliability. An updated list will be released this November, and so districts can stay informed and begin planning for training and implementation. Next up, we give the timeline for the screener and the diagnostic and the math improvement plan to be given to students. So within that first 30 days, each student should be taking the screener, and then once those students are identified by the screener to be at risk in mathematics, they should be given a math diagnostic within the first 45 days of the calendar year. And then once that math diagnostic has been given and produces data, then a math improvement plan will be developed for each individual student in grades K-3 that have been identified as being at risk and needing intervention. The math improvement plan template is now available, and so districts can modify the template to fit the local context, and the template is used to provide to help the problem-solving process and document intervention plans, progress monitoring, and parent notification. If they already have an intervention plan developed, those schools can use that plan and develop the pieces of the math improvement plan into that MTSS plan because that does fit with the goals of the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act. When the early numeracy results show, this is just talking about that accelerated learning that we would want for those students that have been identified as needing that math improvement plan to provide accelerated interventions during or outside the school day, led by individuals most qualified to deliver evidence-based mathematics instruction, to also offer intensive instructional services along with progress monitoring and targeted supports, and sharing resources and strategies with families to help encourage mathematics success at home. These steps ensure that students receive the timely, high-quality support that they need to build numeracy foundations. In advance of local implementation, the KDE has worked with key statewide partners to provide professional learning for K-8 educators and administrators. We have 4 academies, and I'll show those on the next slide. And we also have the MAF grant that supports 51 schools with school-based mathematics coaching. The implementation efforts of KDE numeracy academies include Advanced Kentucky's Access to Algebra, which is a comprehensive training and incentive model to support rigorous middle school mathematics programs. Together, these cohorts represent 175 teachers across 28 Access to Algebra schools for the 25-26 school year, all focused on strengthening algebra readiness. The EPIC Kentucky Numeracy Alliance is an opportunity for teachers of grades 3 through 5 focused on numeracy with fractions, and grades 6 through 8, which is focused on numeracy with ratios and proportional reasoning, to complete Carnegie's learning evidence-based professional learning patterns and receive coaching by the EPIC team. There are 168 participants total currently. And then we are also working with the Kentucky Center for Mathematics as a major effort with 990 K-5 educators participating in KCM-NA, a 2-year hybrid learning experience, which launched this past summer. It is developed and facilitated by KCM in partnership with KDE. The teacher academies feature a blend of in-person summer launch sessions, both synchronous and asynchronous virtual learning opportunities designed to meet the needs of Kentucky K-5 math teachers. There's also a leadership development portion of this. The Partnership Institute for Math and Science Education Reform, PIMSR, launched a companion leadership academy this past summer. It was developed by PIMSR in collaboration with KDE and an advisory board. The academy prioritizes instructional leaders, district leaders, and building principals from schools where teachers are participating in the KCM K-5 teacher academies. Cohort 1 contains 252 administrators, with 24 receiving additional coaching. To support curriculum implementation, 40 districts have been awarded $70,000 in grants to adopt an HQIR and or engage in curriculum-based professional learning. And finally, we're proud to share that 139 districts across the Commonwealth are actively participating in one or more of these efforts, demonstrating a strong statewide commitment to improving mathematics education. Also in alignment, each superintendent is required to adopt an evidence-based mathematics curriculum for kindergarten through grade 3. This curriculum must be paired with high-quality instructional resources that are determined by the KDE to be valid, reliable, and aligned to Kentucky academic standards for mathematics. To support districts in making informed decisions, the Kentucky legislature charged KDE through KRS 156.405 with developing a mathematics instructional resources consumer guide. This guide is designed to assist in the local selection of HQIRs. Also included here is the 2025 approved K-12 high-quality instructional resources for mathematics. District leaders are encouraged to use these resources as a guide in their curriculum adoption and implementation process to ensure consistency, quality, and access in mathematics education. With that, that is the end of my presentation. I do encourage each of you to sign up for the newsletter. You can scan that QR code. I'll leave that up for a second. If you'd like to sign up for the numeracy newsletter, we would love to have you receive those. We also like to highlight districts and schools across the state for best practices. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for your presentation. At this time, we will take questions for Chelsea if anyone has anything that they would like to ask her. Yes, I think Brenda has her hand up. Brenda, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. It appears that the whole process starts with the initial screening, the first 30 days of school. Once the district has decided the device it's going to use, how is that implemented? Are we looking at one-on-one assessment of students? And then
So
is it the district's decision?
it is the district's decision, and those screeners, most of them are an online screener, but there are some that are one-on-one, face-to-face and interview style. And so it's really dependent upon the screener that they choose, which each individual student does have to be administered that screener. So it may be online, but it also may be one-to-one in person.
May I follow up, please?
Yes.
Yesterday afternoon, I spent some time looking at NWEA's screeners and diagnostics. And the actual computation or the actual investigation or activity that the student was asked to do seemed perfectly reasonable, but they were all accompanied by 3 or 4 sentences that had to be read. I'm concerned about the reading level of the students that are going to take this screener. Are those perhaps, if they're online, are those perhaps read to them, the instructions?
It would be dependent upon that screener and how that school chooses to demonstrate that. I know that is also has always been a concern of my own when administering a math screener, whether I'm assessing their reading ability or truly assessing their mathematical skills. And so that would be dependent upon that individual screener and that individual district.
Hey, Brenda, this is Jana Beth. I'll just jump in. That's the screener we use. And in K1, it is read to the students. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other follow-up questions for Ms. Chelsea? Okay, hearing none, Chelsea, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate all the information that you have provided for us. Very timely as we enter this season of looking at our assessment scores. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, I would like to welcome Ms. Jennifer Stafford, the Associate Commissioner, Office of Assessment and Accountability, and Ms. Shara Savage, the Director of the Office of Assessment and Accountability, and they are going to provide us an assessment and accountability update. So welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. And before I begin, I just want to express my sincere thank you to Jana Beth. Jana Beth, you've been a guiding light here for SCAAC for many years, and we appreciate your service. We appreciate your knowledge, your expertise that you bring to every project that you do and that you lead. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I will say I've gotten to be the SCAAC chair under both Governor Fletcher, both different governors. And so I think it's great. But we appreciate everything you all do, and you make our work look easy. So thank you.
Thank you. And for our incoming chair and vice chair, Carrie and Alan, thank you very much for your willingness to step forward and serve. We know how busy you are with the leadership in your district and all the work, Carrie, that you're doing around local accountability and the leadership you provide to your district and your schools and community. That we just really appreciate the fact that you are willing to step forward, and just so thankful to both of you.
Thank you. I'm honored to serve in this role. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And we look forward to working with both of you in the future. So let's talk about the future as we transition from our previous post-secondary readiness exam from the ACT to the SAT. We've been on the broadcast before, and we've talked about the transition from ACT to SAT. But now that we actually have a fully executed contract that we've got on the progress of that award of that contract, we can now dive deeper into the administration and the implementation of that college readiness exam. So as a reminder, the College Board won the contract for the 25-26 school year and beyond. They will administer and bring forward the SAT as Kentucky's official college readiness exam for our juniors. So they bring with it years of experience that they've administered here in Kentucky, the AP exams. So we feel like that with the transition to SAT, it'll be smooth since many of our high schools have already engaged with the College Board with the administration of the AP exams. Now, this contract impacts our students that are graduating in 2027, so the next school year. So we're looking at this school year as a transition to SAT because the seniors this year took the ACT in the spring. So we've got a year to transition any of our policies that actually have written into them ACT or any of our scholarships or any of our other measures that need to be updated. So this is really a transition year that we're looking toward. We also have previously developed SAT benchmarks for the college readiness. We work with and adopt the Council on Post-Secondary Education's benchmarks, and we use those for the school accountability system. And so those benchmarks are already established, and we'll just continue to use those. Now, we have had in the past many students who have transferred in to Kentucky or taken the SAT exam who have used the SAT to demonstrate college readiness. And the college admissions exam is, again, just one of the many opportunities students have that they can demonstrate post-secondary readiness. So it doesn't have to be the college admissions exam. It's just one of the options. And so we've used that for many students, again, in the past. The college admissions exam is a bit different than we've had at the state level because it is an online adaptive exam. Now, this is the first time that the state, for a state required assessment, has moved into the adaptive nature. Now, many of our schools and districts are familiar with adaptive nature because of their screeners that we were just talking about, and that Brenda asked a question about. Those are particularly could be adaptive. So if you think about your STAR, your MAP, your iReady, those assessments are already adaptive. And so our districts are familiar with an adaptive exam. This is just the first one for a state required that we've moved into the adaptive nature. So with the SAT, it has two content areas or two sections that is tested. It's the reading and writing section as well as the math. Now, within each of those sections, there'll be two modules. So the students take the first module, and it has a variety of various levels of difficulty, high, medium, and low. So depending on how the student responds to those, then it adapts that second module in that content area. So if a student is doing really, really well on difficult items, then in the second module, they won't, they'll engage with higher level items and not take those lower level items. And that is leads to a reduction in the testing time, which is about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we have also from the SAT an analysis of science score. Although the students don't take a science section, that they do receive an analysis of science score that is derived from the questions within those other two content areas. So with the College Board, they offer a flexible testing window. Schools may choose to administer the SAT anytime between March 2nd and April 10th of 2026. So this gives the decision-making in the hands of the school leaders that they can decide when within that window they administer the assessments. And that gives a lot of flexibility for our students who have needs that maybe extended breaks or extended time, that schools can work with the students to provide them the accommodations that they need. And the College Board offers several accommodations that lead to a college reportable score. They have many that are available for our students that need accommodations for reading and seeing, both in a digital format as well as the paper format. There are differences in the accommodations when we get to whether it's digital or paper. And so there are also accommodations that the state will allow beyond what the college boards allow that would lead to a non-college reportable score. So the students that have maybe some needs that go beyond where the College Board has set the determination, then the state allows those accommodations that would go beyond those that are written into their IEPs. So there are chances for a college reportable score as well as a non-college reportable score. And there, again, are a variety of accommodations, including extended time, extended breaks, recording answers, and so forth. We've got a handbook for our educators and our directors of special education who need information around how to administer these different accommodations to our students. And so, yes, we offer accommodations to our students. There are also supports for our English learners. They have approved accommodations, again, through the College Board that could include up to time and a half, translating test directions, a word-to-word bilingual dictionary, and then starting in 2025, we'll be able to select text-to-speech as well. So that'll be coming for our students taking the assessments. We're very excited about the resources that we are able to offer through the College Board to our Kentucky educators and our students and families. The first being aligned resources to the Kentucky academic standards. So it's not generic. It is not just a template that we're offering, but actually customized resources to the Kentucky academic standards. So we're thrilled about that. We also have other resources here for our students, our educators, and our families that include, again, those aligned to the Kentucky academic standards, understanding the SAT, and that it means more than a score, and so forth. We have many at these sites. These links here for you lead to additional resources as well. So included for our students in our schools are full-length SAT exams. There are currently 10 SAT exams available to our schools that they could practice the administration. 3 of those include a portion of the exam that Kentucky doesn't administer, but so that there's 7 has the reading, writing, and math. So encourage our students as well as our educators to utilize those resources that are free. And so we don't have to purchase the SAT exam. There are 7 in there that could be utilized in the school. As well as there are like daily questions that educators could use in their classrooms and on their formative assessment. So again, lots of good resources for the upcoming administration. We've started the trainings toward administration. We started in early November, and they go through this week. That and we've found that they have been very informative. The College Board has sent representatives here and has supported all of our educators. And as the educators leave these trainings, they feel very supported and prepared for administration in the spring. So these are going quite well, and we'll offer additional trainings as appropriate and as needed as we get closer to those particular points in time. So let me turn it over to Shara at this point. She's going to go a little bit more into the science analysis exam.
Thank you, Jennifer. So let's get started. Let me take control here. The analysis in the science score is a key component of the digital SAT. This score is derived from questions embedded in both the reading, writing section and the math section, not from a separate science test. The goal is to measure how well students can apply scientific reasoning and problem-solving skills rather than memorizing science facts. This helps ensure that students are developing the types of thinking skills necessary for success in college, career, and especially those STEM pathways. One of the biggest advantages of this new design is efficiency. So instead of adding an additional science section, science reasoning is woven into the existing test, which reduces testing time about 35 to 40 minutes. The analysis in science score assesses how students think critically and solve problems, emphasizing application of critical thinking and data interpretation and scientific reasoning. This approach gives a more accurate picture of the student's readiness for scientific study without over-testing. In the reading and writing portion, students will see passages drawn from real-world scientific studies. These passages include hypotheses, methods, data, and conclusions, just like those found in a science classroom. Students are asked to analyze, research summaries, interpret findings, and understand the implications of data. Essentially, this measures how well a student can read and reason like a scientist, identifying claims, evaluating evidence, and drawing those conclusions. Science also appears in the math section, but here the focus shifts to a quantitative reasoning. The students solve problems that mirror those that they might encounter in those science classes. For example, using equations to model data and analyze the results. This section of test test how effectively students can use mathematical models to interpret scientific information, a critical skill for any field that uses data in decision making. The skills assessed in the analysis in science score align closely with Kentucky science standards. Students must analyze authentic research, compare those scientific viewpoints, and use data to support those challenges, challenge a hypothesis. These tasks mirror what's expected again in those in a science classroom and those across the Commonwealth, encouraging that deeper learning and scientific literacy. Ultimately, the design ensures that the SAT results are not only relevant for college admissions, but also for Kentucky educators and students. So I'll stop there. Jennifer, do we want to stop and ask questions before we move on to the state and federal calculations?
Yes, I think this is a good time to stop and see if anyone has questions about the SAT or the College Board.
This time we'll entertain questions if anyone has any at this moment in our presentation.
I just want to jump in and say I appreciate the regional meetings to offer this training face-to-face. And I look forward to hearing more from KDE and the collaboration with College Board.
Thank you, Jenny Beth. We appreciate it.
I'll second that appreciation. I know that it was difficult to roll this out as we were waiting on the lawsuit to be finalized, and people were getting anxious to get information, but you all have done such a fabulous job of getting information to schools and to districts. So thank you for that work.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your patience of with us as we tried to navigate that. We were ready to move forward with the College Board, and it was a delay that that we just needed to get through, and we are on the other side of it, and we're so glad to be there.
Yes, yes, I echo that.
Anyone else have any questions or comments that you would like to make before we move on to our state and federal calculations?
Dr. Ballinger, the one thing I will say about the protest, it wasn't necessarily about the process of selecting one or the other of the college admissions tests. It had other information. So the process was never in question. It was always some of the technicality of the two, I'll say, proposals, if you will, between the two vendors. So for us, we followed the process. We followed the process with the finance cabinet, and we felt like we followed every dotted every I, crossed every T, if you will, and then got to that point. And there was some technical protest as it relates to the proposals themselves, not the process. So I just want to put that out there so everyone knows.
That's right, Dr. Fletcher. And as well as when we got back the judgment from the Finance Administration Cabinet, there was absolutely, and I'm quoting here, no merit to that protest. So we were in good standing, and we're just ready and excited to move forward.
Yes, we are.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll move on to state and federal calculations.
Okay, thank you. So what's new this year is the introduction of two distinct calculations for change in performance, as outlined in KRS 158-6455. There will now be two distinct methods for determining change in performance, depending on the context. Let's look closely at the wording of the statute. Status and change shall receive equal weight in determining overall performance for all students as a group and separately for individual groups. Status shall be determined by using the current year's performance, and change shall be determined by using the difference in performance from the prior year to the current year. Our accountability system balances two components equally: status, which reflects current year performance, and change, which measures improvement over time. Senate Bill 158 requires that for identifying the lowest performing schools, 3 years of prior data must be used to calculate change. For the purpose of identifying the lowest performing 5% of schools, the calculation of change will be based on a 3-year trend comparing the current year to performance over the prior 3 years. For CSI, TSI, and ATSI identification, change is based on a 3-year average difference in performance, ensuring a more stable, long-term view of progress. This is the first year that 3 years of change data is available, which means we now can use that information to fully apply this part of the accountability system. It is important to remember that the federal accountability, that federal calculation yields classifications. So now let's take a look at Kentucky's accountability system. For both federal and state indicator scores, they use the same foundational components, status and change, but differ in how the change component is calculated and applied. The state change score is a simpler year-to-year comparison calculated by the current year score and the current year status score, subtracting the prior year score. The federal change score, however, is based on the 3-year average of change scores using the current and the prior year's status score. This approach provides a more stable, as I said earlier, a more stable view of performance over time. All of the indicator scores, both state and federal, once you have your individual indicator scores, then they're combined into an overall score. One overall score is used for state reporting, giving you those colors, and another for the federal classification. Because there is the state and the federal calculation, and because they differ, the two overall scores may not always match. It is important to understand the distinction in how these results are used. The state calculation determines the school color rating. The federal calculation determines classifications such as CSI, TSI, and ATSI. This helps ensure that both federal and state requirements are met while providing a clear understanding of the school performance. Now let's take a closer look at the federal classification. For federal classification, TSI identification is required annually. Beginning in this fall 2025, both CSI and CSI 1 and CSI 2 federal classifications will shift to an annual cycle. This change was mandated by House Bill 298. Also starting the fall of 2025, and then every 3 years thereafter, Kentucky will identify a school as a TSI where the school was identified for TSI in the immediately preceding year and has the same subgroup performing as poorly as all students in any of the lowest performing 5% of Title I schools or non-Title I schools, and by level, elementary, middle, or high, based on that school performance. Schools that no longer meet the identification criteria and have demonstrated progress will exit these federal classification statuses. We have developed a resource for you that's linked here on the slide, understanding the two calculations in accountability reporting guidance document. At this time, I will turn it back over to Jennifer, or we can pause here for questions.
Sure, just a couple of additional notes there. Shara, if you'll go back one slide. So this year is an identification year for our CSI, that's our continuous support and improvement schools. So it's an identification year. So the number of schools is 5% of elementary, 5% of middle school, and 5% of high schools. So where we had not identified since 2022, then the schools have been exiting since 2022. So there are fewer number of CSI schools last year, the year before, whereas this year is an identification year that is mandated to have 5% of schools to be identified. So that there is going to be no comparison to the number of CSI schools from 2025 to last year, 2024. So that's not a fair comparison because this is an identification year, whereas last year was not an identification year. And similarly with ATSI, has not been identified as well. And therefore, the number of ATSI schools, and those are the schools that have been identified for TSI and have not exited, they continue to have that student group continuously performing as low as the bottom 5%. The number of schools for ATSI can't be compared either to last year. So there's going to be some differences there and some nuances that where the comparison cannot be made. So any questions about where we are with the accountability and then the release? As Dr. Fletcher mentioned at the opening, we are in the embargo period right now. We have released the data, accountability data, as well as the assessment data to our districts and working media. So media that have signed a non-disclosure, they are developing their stories, they are developing their broadcast for tomorrow, and that embargo period ends at 12 at midnight tonight. So at 12:01 a.m. we'll have the release of data, and we'll have both open house as well as the school report card dashboard available tomorrow. So we would, if we were able to talk more, we would be able to share some of the results with you if we were just one day different. But we look forward to being able to share.
If I were able to turn my camera on, you might see a smile on the commissioner's face. That's all I'll say. Just them smiling today. That's all.
Well, good. Yes, there are many bright spots that we look forward to sharing. Okay, let's move on then to our next topic, which is the new science assessment. So as we've mentioned before, we've talked about science multiple times here with our members. In 2023, the Science Kentucky Academic Standards were adopted by the Kentucky Board of Education. Those standards were tweaked a bit. And so with those tweaked standards, we took the opportunity to update the Kentucky Science Summative Assessment. And with that new assessment came new types of items and a reduction of those long clusters that we had that was around a phenomenon and had multiple questions to that. So we developed more shorter clusters as well as more standalone items and included those on a test that had some reduction of reading load. What we wanted to do is align the test with the instruction that is happening in the classroom. And we took that opportunity with the updated Kentucky Science standards to update the test as well. So the students in grades 4, 7, and 11 took the new science assessment in the spring of 2025. And with that new assessment, we brought in educators to update several of the resources around that assessment, including the performance level descriptors. And those performance level descriptors, they describe what it means to perform at each of those performance levels. So Kentucky educators, experts in the teaching field of science, as well as a co-op staff, instructional coaches, college professors, came in and looked at what it means to and described what it means for a student to be novice, for a student to be apprentice, and what type of performance that they had to be at proficient and distinguished. So those performance level descriptors were clarified in their language so that it's really understandable about what it means to be at those different levels. Now, those performance level descriptors, they don't tell teachers what to teach or how to teach, but they're instructional tools that can be used as teachers are developing their instructional strategies and their activities in their classroom. Once those performance level descriptors were modified, then we took those into what we called a standard setting process, and we brought in a different set of Kentucky educators. We had some of the members of the PLD group that overlapped with the science standard setting, and we wanted that consistency within those groups. So several members that were on the PLD committee that worked in June also came back and were very involved in the conversation around setting the cut scores for those performance. So over a course of 2 days, the over 30 educators worked really hard at looking at the assessment and those items that were on that spring 25 assessment. And they actually recommended those cut scores on the scale where it means for a student that would transition from novice to apprentice to proficient, and then the proficient and distinguished. Those educators made those recommendations to Commissioner Fletcher, who adopted those without changes. So the teachers, those Kentucky educators, made those recommendations that will then move forward in the release of this year's school results. And so that important work had to happen before we could release assessment scores. And those assessment scores were released for science in October, on October 21st. Now, the other content areas were released to our schools and districts back in early August. So the science assessment scores were delayed, but for instructional planning and student support, all the other assessment scores were released in early August. But we felt it was really important to have those steps in place, and those steps had to happen in the engagement of our Kentucky educators, and that has been the delay of our accountability public release that will happen tomorrow. Now, again, those performance level descriptors are really important and a good resource for our educators. I had the opportunity to be at the Scott Trimble workshop, and Jana Beth had a great session on the use of performance level descriptors, and it's a really good instructional tool when utilized. Those performance level descriptors are, again, at grades 4, 7, and 11. And I've just taken just a clip here of the distinguished at grade 4. What I want to point out to you is the educators wanted to be really clear in the wording that the science and engineering practices, as well as those cross-cutting concepts, along with those disciplinary core ideas in science, were important, and students need to have those skills to be able to demonstrate performance at those higher levels. So again, really good resource there. Now, these are the cut scores that the educators recommended, and you can see kind of where those lines are between novice and apprentice, apprentice and distinguished, or apprentice and proficient, proficient and distinguished. Those lines, those numbers there are where the recommendations came from the Science Standard Setting Committee. So really appreciate the engagement. We had partners who recruited our members. We had KDE's staff here that went above and beyond to get the number of educators in here. So great partnership and great work. And the participants were excellent, who came in and did this important critical work. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Shara, and she's going to tell you about more resources.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we have some, as Jennifer said, some resources for you. We wanted to share an update on the released items from spring 25 administrations of both KSA and the AKSA. These are now available for districts and schools to review. KSA released items can be accessed through Kentucky Released Items link on mypearsonsupport.com. The AKSA released items are posted on the KDE sample test items webpage. And in compliance with the statute, we have data information that is also available. For KSA, the released item data files can be found on Pearson Access Next by navigating to Spring 25 Summative, then Reports, and then selecting Published Reports. For the AKSA, the data is included on the last page of each item set. So those are there for you, for you to review at your convenience. And that is all I have, Jennifer. Turn it back over to you.
And I think that that's our last topic. And so I'll pause here to see if there are any questions. I see a hand up.
Alan Young.
Yes.
All right, let me navigate my screen. I don't know why all the, like we can't see people. I know my camera is on and I can see me and like 3 other people. I don't know what the deal is with that, but anyway, I have a question that is just related based on the upcoming legislative session and the idea of what is going before it with regard to assessment and accountability, because we don't meet again till, if we approve those dates or whatever, March 17th. And is there anyone who can give a little bit of an overview about from now until the session starts about what's being done and what we should be looking for or anything like that?
Jennifer, I can take that question. As far as the accountability model itself, we presented, I think, on this once before. nothing has changed since the Cool Council and through our presentation through this, but briefly, we are looking at two parts for the overall accountability model. What we're proposing includes the math and an adaptive math and reading test that would give not only the grade level distinguished proficient apprentice novice ratings, but also two would get grade level equivalency. Now, we're not looking at giving grade level equivalency above maybe 2 grade levels above or 2 grade levels below. But again, that would be the adaptive test that's being, we're actually promoting with our state legislature. Now, that will come at a price tag, and the price tag mainly comes in the changeover from the old test, or the test we're currently taking, to the new one. So the comparability would not be there as we go through. The second part, and again, I'm doing all this from memory, so I apologize. I don't have the model in front of me. So if I miss something, Jennifer can chime in. The second part, we're promoting from going from change to growth. Looking at individual student growth from one, where did a student finish their third grade year versus where they finished their fourth grade year. That seems to have a lot of momentum within our legislators of going to that model as opposed to the change model we have now. We're not looking at changing anything as far as graduation requirement. The graduation rate, the transition readiness. The only other piece that we're proposing to change would go along with growth is the ELL population. So an ELL student could take the assessment in year one, we'll say, and that would be the baseline year, would not be a part of accountability. Then in year two, that student's growth score would be a part of accountability. Then in year three, we'll say their performance or their status and their growth would be. So they'd be fully a part of the accountability model by that time. Also too, so science is actually pulled out separately. We're still giving a science exam, very similar to what we're doing now. We don't look at any changes in the current science assessment that we've discussed at this point, but it would be reported separately as not a part of the overall formula, if you will, to identify CSI, TSI, ATSI schools. The other part would be the local accountability piece. We are asking, currently we have a lot of districts already have their own local accountability model. I think we have 7. We've been self-reported. We've had districts to tell us about 30 others are getting into this local accountability work. We're not saying that the local accountability, we're not advocating for the local accountability to be a percentage of the CSI calculation. It would be separate. It's however a district wants to develop their own local accountability model. There are some opt-in pieces. We're also asking the state government to pay for interim assessments, much like what you'd say with math, STAR, iReady, things of that nature, that would align with the summative assessment at the end of the year for math and reading. So currently, you essentially have every district should have about 4 testing windows. Let's just say if you're using iReady, so you'd have your fall assessment, your winter assessment, your spring assessment, then you'd also have your state assessment. So there's 4 testing windows. So essentially, if a district would opt in to our interim assessment system, they would use the state fall, the state winter, and then the state summative at the end. Now, mind you, we're not saying that the formative assessments, the interims in the fall or the winter, should be a part of any type of calculation model. It's only for formative data for districts as they prepare for the state accountability assessment system at the end, and also to help them with their MTSS systems that they have. We also have other portions of the opt-in. We're recommending that districts develop their own social studies and writing assessments, possibly a competency-based system or some type of performance-based system. But if they're not ready for that, then we would offer opt-in social studies and writing, but they would have to take one or the other. They can't just say we don't give a science or writing assessment. They'd either have to take the science and writing assessments that we offer or develop their own to be a part of their local accountability model. Of course, the big piece of the requirement of the local accountability would be vibrant learning. How are districts showing students that are having internship opportunities, defenses of learning, project-based learning, other type items that we call vibrant learning as a part of that. The other piece that doesn't really get a lot of promotion is the opt-in science Right now, we're promoting that science would be tested, be assessed at the 5th, 8th, and I think 10th grade levels, but we would be giving off-grade assessments for 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, and possibly 9th grade for schools to have summative data for their science assessment so they can look at how students progress over years. So there wouldn't be a science assessment in the fall and the winter, but there would be an end of the year science assessment in 3rd grade and 4th grade if districts want to take those. It's not a part of the accountability calculation, but it would be something that districts use from a formative piece. And then there would be, of course, the science at the 5th, 8th, and 10th grade levels. Jennifer, did I cover about everything as far as the model? Is there anything that you can think of that I missed?
That's really good going from memory.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I've given this presentation several times to several legislators, so that's been helpful. I think Brian Perry could also do this from memory also too. He's been with me on all those meetings. Now, where we are is I've met, and Dr. Perry and I have met. He's our legislative liaison. We've met individually with members of the Senate Education Committee. We've met with some of the House Education Committee. We've also met with leadership to present to them what the model looks like. But we're also giving them, this is like if we were to line item out the cost of each piece. So they're, instead of saying this is an entire package deal, they don't have to approve the entire package. Although this is what came out of all of our town hall meetings. This is what people have pushed forward through our surveys, our town hall meetings, and other areas too. But if, let's say that I mean, we could go into a session and come out and say they only want growth and local accountability. That could be a possibility. Or they could say we want growth with the old test and not a new test. You could do that. I mean, there's a lot of things in there because we're hearing that the budget is going to be very tight. But we haven't been, as a matter of fact, I talked to one of the legislative liaisons recently from the other side of the river, if you will, from the Senate and House. There hasn't been much pushback at all on the cost of the adaptive model because it would give grade level equivalency. So that's where we are. If there's, we highly recommend that our people, if you're, a part of this work as far as SCAAC and you're in favor of this, we highly recommend that you talk to your legislators. We do have legislators that are part of local accountability models. As a matter of fact, Dr. Ballinger has a local accountability model now in her district. I think that they just published their, back in the summer, their ebook that has all their information, the data that their district asked for. And they actually have Senator Storm and Representative Bray as part of one of their local accountability committees that they have, I think, in family engagement. So that's where we are, and that's how we're moving forward. Dr. Ballinger, anything you want to add on that?
I will just say it's really exciting work, and I've shared with the commissioner many times that even if the local accountability piece does not pass through the legislature and this is not part of our accountability model, that our school district will not go back to the previous way that we were doing business, because having that community buy-in and having students and parents and community members is helping us set goals for our district it's been a really remarkable experience for us locally. So I'm a huge advocate for it.
Well, and we're hearing the same type of, thank you for that, Dr. Ballinger, but we're hearing the same from other districts that are implementing local accountability models that, as a matter of fact, the quote from Dr. Bacon out at Bullitt County is that it's restored the faith of the community within their public school system. They're learning more, they're being a part of the decision making, and they're bringing kids back to the classroom that maybe have been going to other districts or maybe even to private schools or even homeschool. They have a lot of people that are coming back, and they feel like that transparency has been a great part of the work that they're doing. Chair Ballinger, any other questions you like? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I would say that I wish that we could share a little bit of that assessment data today, because in our district, our community set a really high goal for our high school to achieve, and we've been working on it for the last 2 years, and I'm really excited to say that we've met that goal and excited to share that with our community tomorrow. But it really is a great model to involve everyone in finding out what really is important to the people that that live and work and attend school in your community, and then you're designing your school system after the desires of the people that are participants. So it's a really great way to involve everyone.
And the last thing I'll share, Dr. Ballinger, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that I found that was, there's so many parts that's exciting about from different districts. I think we have 7 districts again that are doing local accountability. Shelby County, Greenup County, Fleming County, Logan, I think has had a model for a while. Kenton County, Bullitt County, I think, are the 7 that are that I can think of, if I mention them all. But we have several others that are in the work. But I will say one issue that really caught my attention in Rockcastle County was the fact that in this local accountability process, the community, this time last year, if you remember, what was going on I-75 with the shooting and on the interstate. People in that community said it is of the utmost importance that we have SROs in every single school. Well, the district conveyed back to the community, we can't afford that. Then all of a sudden became a community problem, and it became a community issue to solve. Not just the school said, how do we find money? The community worked together to say, okay, now, Dr. Ballinger, if I read your ebook correctly, every single school there has an SRO, and that came out of the work of the group working together. So it's not just about student achievement. It's also about student safety. Actually, it's about whatever your district and your community wants to identify as part of. Now, student achievement is always a big part, but also too that safety of students was a big part of her local accountability model.
That's an excellent example of just the community coming together to say this is important, and then problem solving with the school system to determine how do we make that possible. So thank you for mentioning that.
Oh, you're welcome. Dr. Ballinger, if you want to point out any other questions, I see a few hands.
Yes. Sarah, do you have a question?
I do. I was just curious, Dr. Fletcher, about the social studies and writing assessments. Would those still be at the same grade levels they currently are, or would those change to different grade levels?
Well, I think there's some flexibility there of where would the district like to have those. You know, we could have it at the same grade level because, again, we were saying that that we would give it at the same grade levels we have now. But if a district says we want to develop our own social studies and writing assessments, then, we would look at what is the flexibility of when do you want to give your own assessments and report that back to your district, to your people. So that would be a part of the local accountability piece, but we would still offer it at the same grade levels that we have. But then you would have the flexibility as a district to say, this is our social studies assessment. It could be performance based. Then, we've had some people talk about badging systems, things of that nature as an idea. I've even had a couple districts, and forgive me if I offend anyone, talk about writing portfolios. Some people love writing portfolios. Others don't. I kind of cringe. I'm glad you didn't see my face when I said writing portfolio. But others do think that's a great way, and I agree. It is a great way to show growth in students with writing portfolios. So if a district wanted to do that, they can, but that's up to the district. We're offering our assessments that are very similar to what we offer now, probably the same type of assessment at the same grade levels, but it'd be up to the district of when they will want to administer on their own. And again, we'd have some flexibility in negotiating how that looks.
Hey, Alan, do you have a question?
Yeah, just kind of a follow-up. And first of all, thank you, both Commissioner Fletcher and Dr. Ballinger, for sharing those experiences and giving a little bit more context of how we're, heading into this legislative session. The thing that I just want to bring up is that we are on this committee being about school curriculum, assessment, and accountability, and not just 3 like separate pieces, but like in a system, and to tell a story how those are related. They're not unrelated to each other. I get a little bit concerned that what legislators see are just little parts and pieces of things, and they are supplying just their own story and what their own experience has been. Therefore, when they say, do you want to tweak on this growth to, change the growth or things like that, they're just almost like little knobs or something, getting the ability to see just parts and pieces. I think the movement with the United We Learn and all of the work that included the Kentucky Board of Education's portrait of a learner or portrait of a graduate with 160 whatever districts now having those. And of course, we in Jefferson County started that in 2015 or so, where we began birthing that. I just still think that that story is not out there. And so how might we connect to education committees to be able to make sure that they're not just being tasked with approving parts and pieces, but really understanding that if we are not allowed to make some changes in how we do curriculum assessment and accountability, we can't get to a more vibrant learning experience for all kids and keep our educators in place. And I'm just, there's multiple ways to do it. It's certainly not just through only our means or through the legislature, but I just hope that we continue to help legislators in particular understand the fuller story and why, like a local accountability in particular, with the different kinds of ways of capturing student learning, growth, change, evidence, is very powerful, so that all of our districts not only can be supported by the state to do it, and not to do it all the same way, but absolutely to do it in a way that the state and legislation and legislative support is there for us to do it as well. It's different to do it in Shelby versus Rockcastle versus Franklin versus Jefferson County, which we have a huge scale issues here. And I just want to make sure that our legislators really are well informed about it. But thank you to all you do about all those things, and for indulging me as well as I keep pressing on this more competency-based, personalized local assessment part as a way of helping round out what has been a satellite system of just getting sample test scores from kids to say how they're doing or how our teachers are doing or our schools are doing. And I think there's much more rich texture out there, like you all know. And I just want to make sure that we can go into this legislative session being able to help make an improvement in that area to keep sharing our story. But thank you.
Well, I'll start off by just saying amen first and foremost. But my folks here in the office, they keep a dashboard on how many or keep count of how many legislative meetings that I have, and I think that over the past year I'm over 70, either individual or small group meetings, not including interim joint things of that nature, but small group meetings. And each of those meetings, I'd say about 50. I would say about 50 of those, and Dr. Perry can come back with and talk more about that if he'd like. But about 50 of those are about the entirety of the accountability model, and then the importance of districts being able to tell their own stories, and but also too making sure that they make the local accountability model about growth, problem solving, project-based learning. What are things that we're doing to address the needs of our local employers, of our local communities, and what they expect of us? So I often go in and I'll pull up websites of different districts that have their local accountability model posted and allow them to navigate those and show them pieces of that so they can see the importance of that local accountability model. And one thing we did present at, I think, in one of the interjoint committees and started talking about the defenses of learning and then in the local accountability model. And we had one legislator that actually stopped and started talking about defenses of learning as a legislator. There are legislators about the importance of the competency-based system, seeing a whole picture of the student. We all know that students are so much more than a test score. They are so much more. And I'm telling you, legislators are here in the complete package, if you will, from the commissioner, but they also want to see cost. So I have to show them costs. And even if there's parts of this that's approved in this 2 years, then the commissioner will go back in the next year and say, okay, this is what we missed. How can we add that in? So with that being said, it is very important to be in the field talking with leaders, talking with the legislators every time. And it amazes me how many times I'll have legislators come back and say, well, I heard this from our local leadership, or I heard this from our superintendent. What's your thoughts on that? So it's very important to have those type of conversations.
Thank you all.
Very welcome.
Do we have any other questions before we move on to the next item on our agenda? If not, thank you to Jennifer and to Ms. Shara for your presentation today, and for the Commissioner for chiming in and giving us the full picture of what this community-based accountability looks like. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. And next on our agenda, we need to vote to approve the 2026 SCAAC meeting dates. You have those dates on your screen. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to accept these projected meeting dates.
So moved. This is Martha.
Okay, we have a first by Martha. Do we have a second?
Second, McGowan.
Okay, we have a first and second. All those in favor of approving our 2026 meeting dates, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. We have approved these dates. Go ahead and get these on your calendar. It's important for us to be able to have a quorum so we're able to do this good work together as a team. So thank you for that. And before we adjourn, does anyone have any questions or any issues that they would like to bring up before we make a motion to adjourn our meeting? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion for us to adjourn our November SCAAC meeting.
So move, Jana Beth Francis.
We have a first by Jana Beth, a motion. Is there a second?
Sarah Williams, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I do want to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I hope everyone has an opportunity to rest just a little bit and enjoy your family and friends. And with that being said, thank you. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.